I will list the same shoe with box and without box at the same price. Why? Because it makes the shoe with the box looks more attractive. It's like you're adding value without adding value.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to A Reseller's Journey. Here is your host, eBay Joey.
Welcome to the show. I am your host, eBay Joey. Today's guest is up and coming in the reselling game. He has over 180 posts on his Instagram of shoe finds and reselling 101 tips. He is not afraid to source from Marshalls to Gucci. He bought a Calvin Klein long sleeve thermal for 1 penny at Nordstrom's rack. He goes by the name Florida.Flipping, but his cousins call him Justin. Welcome and thank you for being on the show.
Hey, thanks a lot, Joey. I'm honored to be a guest. I've been listening to all your previous podcasts and really good content.
Awesome, man. Thank you for the support, man. I'm very excited. I know we've been talking back and forth for over a month, so to get you on the show, it's definitely exciting, man.
Yep, happy to be here.
Awesome. So how'd you come up with your name?
So, I always like the idea of the alliteration of Florida and then flip. So first I wanted Florida Flipper. That was taken. Then I tried Florida Flip Up with an A. That was taken. Then Florida Flip, taken. Florida Flips, taken. And I finally landed on Florida.Flipping, and it was available. So that's how I came up with it.
So is there any relation to Jersey flipping?
Jersey Flipping is a guy that I followed, and sorry to bite his style, but that was just the available name at the time. So he's doing his thing, though. Yeah.
Definitely. So where are you based out of?
So I am in sunny West Palm Beach, Florida. That's where I'm stationed. But for work, I travel up and down the east coast of Florida. So you might catch me in any of those cities.
Awesome. Were you born and raised in Florida?
No, in fact, I was born in Houston, Texas, and I'm actually here now. And at the time of the recording, the Astros are one game away from winning the championship. So by the time this is released, I'm predicting a championship team from the Houston Astros. So.
Oh man, I'm a Dodger fan, so it's pretty tough. I was gonna wear my LA hat for this interview, but I decided not to.
Yeah, well, they gave us a run for the money when they played us 2 years ago for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So, what's your background?
So I'm in marketing, and I think a lot of the skill set that I have from that gig translates into the reselling game, which is why I feel like I got a pretty quick start in it. And, that's maybe something we can talk about later in the podcast, some of the tips I've used to really help your listeners or anybody who's just starting out go, hey, what do I need to get going in this thing and take off pretty quick.
Yeah, definitely. We'll touch on that as the podcast continues. So what made you get started in reselling? Because you do have, a professional job. I don't know if you need the extra money or if you just wanted the extra money, but you can tell us why.
Sure. So this all started with a fascination for credit card traveling hacking. And have you done any of that yourself? Are you familiar with what I mean by that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I do use all my credit cards to make all my purchases. So the only thing I use like a debit card for would be, my mortgage payment or bills that have to be. But
Right.
I do have a Southwest Flyer miles and I do have a hotel rewards.
Okay, so yeah, along those lines. So probably 4 years ago, I got into that. I earn and use several 100,000 credit card miles a year, and I was always looking for ways to generate more miles.
Mm-hmm.
So I found out that, just by following people on Instagram, that there's this market for buying shoes at these local discount stores, if that's what you want to call them, and then selling them. So the reason I actually started was just to build up points. And then it kind of morphed into more of a profitable business of the shoe itself. So I said, wait a minute, I'm earning points, and that's always a bonus for me. But the actual money I'm making on each one of the shoes that I'm selling is actually more valuable than the points themselves that I'm accruing. So my focus then became, okay, how do I maximize the profit per shoe? And that's how the reselling game started for me. When I started, if you go back a year ago, by the way, Air Max, Vapor Max, Vapor Max Plus, Vapor Max Minus. I had no idea what any of these shoes meant. I was a complete noob in this game a year ago. I had a buddy who I used to work with tell me about some off-white shoes that he got, and I said, "Oh, that's cool. I got some dark gray ones, that I wear." So I had no idea what all that stuff meant. I couldn't have picked out a Jordan 1 from a lineup if you would have asked me a year ago. So I had to start from scratch.
Yeah, and how's that been as far as educating yourself? Because I have a similar background as you. I just been a traditional guy, just go to Nike outlet and, if something's on sale, I would buy that for my personal. But I really only knew like a Jordan 1, a Jordan 4, a Jordan 11. So what was the process for you to kind of educate yourself to where you're at now, where you can point out a Jordan 1, no issues?
Right. So I would say the first place that I started learning about the different models and what's hot, what's not is on YouTube. There's plenty of videos that you can kind of spend hours on just researching that stuff. And then following people on Instagram, that was something I did prior to ever buying my first shoe to resell. I maybe put in 2 to 3 months of research, just learning about it. So that's something that if you're going to get into this reselling business, I highly encourage you to do if you don't already know the stuff, because I didn't. So I had to learn it all from scratch, and YouTube and Instagram were probably the two biggest sources of knowledge that I had.
Okay, so take us back to square one. Did you start reselling, or did you start educating yourself first before you started reselling?
Yeah, I'd say 2 to 3 months of just following shoe trends, learning about the different shoes, watching YouTube videos, seeing what other resellers were picking up and buying. I did that for a solid 2-3 months before I ever bought my first pair. And when I bought my first pair, I went small. So that's another thing. If you're starting out, don't go out there and just start buying everything you see. Test pilot some of the different styles and kind of learn how the process works. And I was only doing StockX and Good at the time also.
Okay. What was the first pair that you bought, and where was that at?
Sure, I remember exactly. It was an Air Max 90 Atmos print. So it's this black shoe. It's got red trim around it, and I found it at Marshall's, $39.99. I looked it up on StockX. They were going for anywhere from 80 to 100. And I said, huh. And here's the funny thing. They had 6 of them. And I was a little nervous. So I go, let me just buy 3 of them, right? So I buy 3 of them. This was on the way to work. I take them back to my office. I sign up for StockX. I list them. One of them had a buy now option or a high bid, so I sold it right away. And then I go, wait a minute, why did I leave those other 3 there? So on the way home, I go back to that same Marshall's, and the 3 were still sitting there, and I picked up the other 3. So that was the first shoe I ever flipped. Yeah.
And then you just caught the fever.
I did, and I got lucky. I think part of it had to do with the fact I was finding a lot of heat early on, meaning, some popular styles that were sitting on the shelves at these, and it was mostly Marshalls because I liked having them with the box. I didn't get into the no box sales later on, but I started at Marshalls, and I was finding some early heat, and those were flipping really quick for me. So I said, there's something to this stuff. So
yeah, that's definitely good because especially on Instagram, there's a lot of Florida competition. And that's one thing I always hear, that the Florida reselling game is very saturated. And you got some big players, and, you got some up and coming guys like yourself. So to find the heat early on, I don't know if it was a setup for disappointment to where you're at now, but that's definitely a good way to start your hustle.
yeah, it's funny because I just thought, every store I walk into is going to have money on their shelves that I can just – and it's not like that, right?
Yeah.
I come to find out sometimes you get hit up 10 stores in a day and walk out empty-handed. So early on, I was going just on the way to work or coming home from work, finding heat and going, oh, this is easy. So that's how the whole thing started. And then I just got a little bit deeper into it, learned a little bit more, try to maximize the profit on each pair. And then now it's grown into, pretty steady side gig.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think for a lot of people that are listening, the side hustle, whether you have a full-time, part-time, or maybe you don't have a job at all, I mean, there's good opportunity in reselling. I think so many people pass by opportunities on the freeway, on the streets, like a Ross, a Marshalls, a Burlington, or even DD's, whatever it is that you want, or Goodwill. But if you want to get into reselling, there's opportunity there. You don't have to go drop $1,000. You can just buy one shoe like you did, or buy three, and start your journey from there. So how much money did you start off with?
So the shoe that I first bought was $40, and I bought three of them, and then I went back and bought the other three. So 6 times 40, that's $240. Add tax, $250. That's all I started with. And then
Okay. And
once those sold, I took that and then bought more.
so right now you probably haven't even dipped into your personal funds.
Oh no, I haven't done that since the first time I bought shoes, which was the 240. And since I was on credit card and I flipped those all within 30 days, and I've never used a penny of my own money to flip shoes. So
Yes. So what stores are you sourcing at, Florida.Flipping?
yeah, so the main ones are just going to be the top, the three heavy hitters of Marshalls, Burlington, and Ross. And then recently I've tried to do more online sourcing, and that's just a factor of time. I got two kids, and we've talked, you got two kids, so
Yeah.
time is of the essence. So I've started to look up underpriced shoes on all the different platforms, whether it's Goat or eBay or Mercari or wherever, and I'll buy those from other resellers or people that just want to get rid of them, and been having some success with that. I haven't had any duds yet.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I went through your Instagram last night. As I was preparing for this interview, and I saw that shoe that you bought from Goat. You can tell us more about the details, but then you did a reflip to Goat. So let us know how that came to fruition.
All right, so I put this in my Instagram post, but if you're flipping on Goat, leave a little bit of Goat credit in there. So if you have $300 to cash out 200 and leave $100 in there. Then pick a popular shoe. For me, I was just checking random styles, and I know Jordan 1s are popular. Jordan 1 lows. This is the post you're talking about. So I'm scrolling, and I see a price come up, and I'm like, that doesn't seem right for the shoe. So I click on it, and for used shoes, they show all the pictures. So I looked at the pictures. The pictures look good. It was a decent find. It wasn't, like somebody walked 1,000 miles in them. So I said, this is just somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, or they need money quick. So I'll be the guy that gives them the money. And so they sent me the shoe, and I looked at the other comps, and that shoe is supposed to be selling for, between 150 and 200. So that's what I listed at, and it sold in 2 weeks. I mean, it was, yeah. I mean, those, you're not going to get a lot of volume with those, but for sure, if you're, got some free time and you're just scrolling and you're looking up some of the popular styles, you can do that. I've found a couple more that I'm waiting to sell. I got it in the pipeline, so.
Hey, can you tell us? I never ordered anything on Goat, and I've sold on Goat. I'm just curious, how was the packaging? Now, did they have the original box? Was there no box, or did they put them in a box? Can you talk about that?
So this listing in particular had original box, so they sent it to me. It was a cardboard box with the shoe inside. There was no stuffing, so if you can just imagine the shoe, no paper shoe trees and no Nike paper. It was the box with the shoe, very basic, and that was my first purchase on Goat. So that's what they sent. And I was actually a little disappointed. I'm like, wow, this is what they're sending people. If I would have paid what the money that I sold it for, I might have been like, come on, let's package it a little better, So.
Yeah, definitely. So, what's your business model look like?
Okay, so the first month I started, which was February of this year, I ended up selling 20 shoes and netted about $300 after fees and shipping or whatever. So that was about $15 a pair. Now, mind you, I'm not even in the game for making a profit yet. At this point, I'm still just using it to spend money on my credit card to build up credit card miles. So the $300 was just a complete bonus, right? I'm like, oh, that's great. But as I got into it and I started realizing I'm leaving a ton of money on the table, and hurting the game by just not maximizing each shoe. I now have a goal every month of selling one shoe a day, so 30 pairs, and making $1,000 a month. That's my minimum. And past 4 months, I've exceeded that. Some of my better months, I've crossed $2,000 a month. But I always keep my inventory of less than 30 shoes. It's between 20 and 30 shoes, so I'm not filling up a warehouse with this stuff. And I don't know how these guys do it. I mean, more power to the guys that have 200, 300, 400 listings. Some people have 1,000 listings. Mm-hmm. I can't manage all this stuff. I don't have the time. So I try to be as efficient as possible. And my goal is 30 shoes a month, $1,000 of net profit after fees and expenses.
So when you sell a shoe, now what's your mindset to replenish that? So you're always at 30, or do you kind of just, well, let me see what's out there? Sometimes do you go above your 30 threshold for your inventory?
Very rarely. I might have once or twice, but I will, if I get to the 30, I will wait. And if sales aren't happening, then I'll start picking the ones that I think are not going to sell, and I will exchange them. I try not to return things outright. I try to exchange. So I'm a believer in, keeping the receipts and all that stuff. So I keep the inventory is cycling in and out. The hot stuff is selling. The other stuff is getting exchanged for more chances.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man. When I first started, and it might just be that when you're new, you're not a professional. The knowledge is not there, so you're going to make some bad decisions. Some of them might be impulse, but I ended up returning a lot of stuff, and now I've kind of changed my philosophy where it's like, let me do my research, let me try to do a better job and have the right inventory. And sometimes you get it wrong, and sometimes you have to go back into the store, but I'm trying to avoid that now. But you just have to keep going. I think you have a model. You have your margins that you want to hit, you have your goal, and then you have your inventory model. And it's obviously working for you because you're part-time. Now, is your inventory only shoes, or is there other items that you're reselling?
It's only shoes. Never sold a glove, never sold a jersey, just shoes.
So when you're sourcing, you're just going down to the shoe department, whether it's women's, the kids, and the men's, and that's it, right?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I hate going. I've done it. I try not to. I mean, unless it's an empty store and I can breeze by the women's section. I don't like doing it. I don't know if other resellers feel me on that, but I go to the men's section, sometimes the kids if it's Ross, and then my sourcing trips are 10, 15 minutes. And to be honest, I'm probably leaving a lot of stuff behind, which if you're another reseller, that's good for you. So you should like resellers like me because I'm just in and out. Just looking for the hot stuff. If it's not there, I'm not checking every tag on every shoe that I don't recognize.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man. I really struggle going into the women's department. I'll walk by the women's, let's say it's a Burlington, and there I go, okay, let me go through the purses, and now I'm gonna walk down this aisle, and I hate going in between the aisle because I'm a man.
It's so true.
Yeah, but there's other people that do it. Shout out to Hustler Hacks during his videos. He's got the camera and he's recording down the women's aisle. I can't do it. I know there's other people, Stevie D, Ross Shallington, all the greats, man. Yeah. They're not afraid. But for me, I just get embarrassed. I'm like, I see women just leave, and then now I'm all to myself. But and plus also I've had a bad experience selling women's shoes. I've sold maybe 3 or 4 pairs, and 2 of them have been returned.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm kind of like, I know women in general like to return more than men once men buy it. There's just different psychology there. And I asked my wife, she's like, I'll return anything. And
yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
So what kind of shoes are you selling? Like what's really just kind of blowing through your inventory, and what's kind of sitting in your inventory?
So I'm in Florida. So for me, this might not be true for other parts of the country, but golf and tennis shoes sell for me quite a bit. And a lot of times they sell in the local market. And those aren't going to be huge finds. I mean, you do have some really high-end golf cleats and things like that. But if I find a pair of golf shoes for $25 at Burlington, and I can sell it locally for $60 cash, I mean, that's a win for me. And that happens quite a bit. There's a ton of golf courses around here. So I like those sales when it comes to, so that's kind of more the lesser known stuff that's working for me. But then you get the other stuff, which is the Vapor Max, the Ultra Boost, and all those styles. Those are winners for me too.
Yeah, are you selling every single brand? Or are you staying to a particular brand when you're sourcing in the stores?
It's 95% Nike and Adidas. Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe this is because I don't know about these other brands, right? I don't know anything about New Balance. I don't know anything about um, Puma or whatever, so, or Under Armour. So I just stick to what I know, and it's pretty limited right now. I'm still learning every day, so I'm by no means an expert in anything, but I have been able to, translate the little knowledge that I have into good results for sure.
Yeah, I think it's key that you're still learning. I'm still learning every day. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of resellers out there that, they're very informative and they post a lot. Like for me, I like New Balance made in the US. I really don't mess with anything else. But then you start to figure out their sizing, the right color. I think the box is important too. I love looking for shoes with the boxes because
Yeah.
it just adds that value. You can get a little bit more. So yeah, man, I think for people out there that are listening, don't be afraid just to kind of focus on one particular brand, even though Nike is well known. Adidas is great, like you said. New Balance is great. Puma's great. So yeah, don't be afraid. Earlier you talked about that you sell your golf shoes on the local market. So is that on a particular platform or how you
Yeah,
getting rid of them?
so that's mostly on OfferUp, and I know a lot of people hate OfferUp. There's a ton of people that just don't like meeting people in person, and I just make it super simple for myself. So I have one location that I meet people at, and if they're not willing to meet there, then I'll ship them the shoe or we don't meet. So it's on my terms. I meet here. It's 2 minutes from my house. So I say when you're 2 minutes away, you can text me. So I'm not going to meet you at a designated. If you want to meet me at 1, great. But I'm not going to show up there at 1 unless you text me through the app and say I'll be here in 2 minutes. So I make it super easy for myself, and under those parameters, we can make the sale happen. If it's not, then I'm just not going out of my way.
Yeah, I like OfferUp. That's probably the one that I use the most for in-person selling, and sometimes I'm willing to even deliver it if the price is right, where they'll add an extra, 10, $15, or maybe I'm going to go to the market or go run an errand and I can swing by. But I mean, you still want to be cautious. You still want to be smart because you do have a product that's worth money, and there's a possibility that something can happen. So just got to be cautious.
Yeah, for me, I pick a spot. It's a Starbucks store inside of a Target, so ton of people, and we're meeting. I mean, if they're gonna pull something shady, they're gonna do it in front of a bunch of people and a bunch of cameras. So
Awesome, man. That's cool. So what platforms are you currently selling on?
So I started only on Goat and StockX because I was only doing Marshalls and they all had boxes. And then once I added Burlington and Ross to the mix, I added new platforms. So I added OfferUp, Mercari, Poshmark, and then the last thing I did was eBay, which I should have got on the eBay train a little earlier, but I'm on 6 platforms. So
Yeah, which one do you like the most and why?
my favorite's Goat. Number 1, no returns and no reviews. So if you send in a good shoe, then that's a done deal, right? So that's my favorite. I think that you get a little bit more for the shoe than you would on some of the other platforms, which I don't know why that is, but Goat is pretty user friendly. So, and you don't need to, after a while, if you get your user rating up, you don't need to take pictures of the shoe. They just take your word for it. So listing, I mean, you can literally list in their car right after you buy the shoe if you want, which is cool.
Yeah, are you selling any used products, or is everything brand new that you're flipping?
So very rarely. I mean, we talked about a Goat flip that I bought a used shoe and then flipped it on Goat. When I sell a used shoe, it's usually because I bought it for myself, wore it a few times, and decided I could live without it, and then wanted to sell it and get something else. I mean, I've never been a sneakerhead. I don't even consider my one myself one now, so I probably have 5 sneakers in my personal inventory. And if
Yeah.
I buy a new one, I'll sell one of the 5 so that it's just a rotating block of sneakers. But and shout out to the guys that are doing it big at the Goodwills and the Play-Dohs. I don't want to deal with used shoes. I don't want to clean shoes. I don't want to do any of that. So I just stick to the new stuff. But I know there's
No,
money to
that
be made, so no knock on them.
Yeah, definitely. I heard. That's kind of been interesting to me lately is just the fact that the thrift items or the Plato's Closet, there's just margins and opportunities there. So, for someone that doesn't have a lot of money and wants to get into the game, I mean, there's a lot of platforms you can do it, take a shot. So how do you manage the 6 platforms of selling? Let's say you buy a shoe at Marshall's, it has the box. Take us through the process of you buy it, you take it home, and then you launch it on all these platforms.
Yeah, sure. So first thing you want to do is, and are we assuming I already know what I'm going to list it at based on the comps I've done, or
Yeah, you did your homework already.
All right. So first thing you can list it on is StockX and Goat because the pictures, there's no pictures, right? You just set it and forget it basically. Okay. So then I'll go home and take pictures of the shoe. I use my iPhone. I don't have a professional setup or anything like that, which I need to eventually get, step up my game on the pictures. But for now, the iPhone's been working for me. And then I'll, at the end of every night, I put my daughters down. The house is quiet. I tend to get on my phone and list the shoes at that point. So I do my listing at night. And, so I'll take pictures during the day because I like to use natural light, but then I'll list the shoes at night when I have some free time. And I'll just do that for every single one. eBay, Poshmark is really easy. Mercari, and then OfferUp. They're all pretty easy to list.
And then what happens when you sell an item? Do you have like a tracking system on Excel to remind yourself like, hey, I got to delete these cross listings? Or do you ever get in trouble because you didn't take it down and then you sold it?
So I haven't yet, but I was worried in the beginning. So if I'm cross listing 6 times, that's the potential for 2 people to buy at the same time, right? It hasn't happened yet, and I'm hoping it doesn't. But as soon as something sells, I get an alert on my phone. And I go immediately then and delete all the listings for the other ones. So as far as tracking the inventory, it's right there on my phone in the notes app. When I buy a shoe, I list the date, the shoe model, the size, and then I have a running total. And then every time I look and I see that it's approaching the 30 days, I have to make a decision whether to exchange that for something else. Like if I don't think it's going to sell. Or if I think it's a hot find and it just needs a little bit more time, I will keep the shoe past 30 days and, not worry about ever returning it. I just think it's going to take more time. But everything I have in inventory turns over in pretty much 60 days. So it's either turned over through a sale or it's turned over through me replacing it with a different shoe. And when I have 30 shoes, or let's say 25, that's kind of the average that I keep in inventory. I mean, that's manageable. If you got 100, 300, 500, whatever it is listings, that's when you need to hire some staff. So I can still do it myself.
Yeah, I have about like 80 to 90 items listed, and I've even thought about maybe creating like a barcode system or a location system with like a scan gun. Haven't got there yet. I'm in the middle of moving.
That sounds super complicated. Maybe I'm just lazy, but I keep things very simple, but it's been working for me. So,
hey, everybody has a different hustle and a different business approach. And I think that's what's interesting about this podcast as I'm interviewing different resellers. Everybody does it different, but everybody's having success. And I've always been a firm believer that there's more than one way to do something in life. And I think the main takeaway from that is the end result. So for you, what is the end result in this hustle?
So remember, it started out as just getting credit card miles, which I'm doing, but then the extra income, if I'm getting an extra $1,000 to $2,000 a month, I mean, that's a ton of money that you can spend on kids or vacations or just miscellaneous, or you can save. I mean, I even have become more generous since I started reselling. I'm buddies with the local pastor, and one day we were having coffee, and he told me, "Oh, the church needs some new sound equipment." And the next day, I sent him $500 and said, "Hey, God bless you." Like there's such an opportunity to do good with your money, or you can save it for retirement. You can spend on your kids. There's just extra money that who wouldn't want. So that's what it's become for me. I don't need it to live. I was fine beforehand. I got a good job. This has just become the extra. So it's nice.
Yeah, I think that's great that you did that gesture, because there's something in giving that just feels good. Whether it's advice, whether it's monetary, I don't know. That's just something that it just does to the human being where you can't really explain it. And I think that was, very awesome of you to do that.
It's 100% accurate. Anytime I give and I'm generous, it comes back to me twofold, threefold. So it's a weird thing, but it's true. Especially down here in Florida, we had a lot of relief efforts for the hurricane that hit the Bahamas, and everywhere you turned, it's, hey, donate here, donate there. Well, if it's shoe money, I have no problem letting that go out of my hands because it's just extra, right? It's for people that have nothing, and I have extra, so why not give them some of it?
Yeah, how does your wife feel about what you're doing? Because I know there's a lot of married people or people that have a spouse. What's that like as far as, now you're doing something extra? This might be a hobby or just something extra that you do in life. What's that like?
All right, so first the bad. The bad is she catches me on my phone a little bit more, and that's a little bit annoying to her, right? You can relate because I hear you chuckling over there, so you can relate to that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, 100%, man. My wife's not a happy camper because I'm always on my phone now.
So she's expressed to me that she doesn't want to see me on my phone as much. So I try to do it at times when there's true downtime, not when the kids are eating dinner, right? And then the second thing is, she has said, hey, I understand that you need the inventory, but I don't want my house to look like a warehouse. So that's one of the reasons I keep my stock so low, is because I have to keep it basically in two closets. My closet and my daughter's closet, I've taken over too, part of it. But that's the bad stuff, right? The good stuff is, though, she's realized that it's not just, $100 extra bucks a month that I'm making. I mean, $1,000 a month or more is that's a lot of money to be doing things with. So when she sees that it's an actual enterprise and we're benefiting from the fruits together, meaning we're taking these family vacations. Disney's not cheap. So if you want to go to Disney next year, let's save up some money for that. And this is a way to do that. Awesome. So she's really supportive, actually. I give her that.
Sure. Yeah. Shout out to all the women out there that support their men in this hustle, whether you're a girlfriend or a spouse or, you're married. So no, that's very important. I think into anything that a couple does, having the other half, whether it's a male or female, it's very important, because without their support, I don't think we can do what we do on a daily basis. And there's a lot of ups and downs. So definitely shout out to them. Earlier facts. You talked. Yeah, definitely. Earlier you talked about that, you're not a sneakerhead, but you have a collection, and sometimes you sell one and you replenish it. What does your collection look like?
All right, so right now I have a pair of blue tint Yeezys that I don't plan on selling, and I have a pair of the Sakai waffles, the black and white ones that came out. Mm-hmm. Those are my two favorite, and then I have a pair of Air Max 1, the University red and white. I have a pair of Air Max 90, the infrared, and Air Max 90 Flyknits, the black and white, and that's it. So I got 5 shoes right now that I'm wearing.
And then there's only one that you won't part ways with?
Yeah, so the Sakai is a good buddy of mine. Blessed me with those. I couldn't cop them on the drop. And he had a pair that he had, and he's like, hey, and he's, believe this or not, he just gave them to me outright. He didn't say, hey, just, buy them off me. He gave them to me. So that shoe does not have a price tag on it. So that's awesome. Those shoes are going to be buried with me. Yeah.
Shout out to your buddy for doing that. Yeah. In the beginning of the podcast, we talked about that your background is marketing. and that's what you do for a living. How did that help you in reselling?
Yeah, good question. So the first thing I think it did was when you're buying a shoe, and you'll hear Hustler Hacks say this all the time if you watch his videos, is you got to do the homework, you got to do the research, and you got to figure out if that shoe is worth getting or not. So there's a lot of market research that goes into these shoes. And it's not just about, is it being listed high on eBay? What's more important to me is the sell-through rate. How quickly is that shoe moving? Because remember, I'm not the type that's going to sit on a shoe for 6 months, 9 months. That's just not my business. If you're doing that, great, but that's just not my business. So I'm looking at the sell-through rate, and StockX is really good about showing you how quickly a shoe is selling. GOAT is, eBay is, some of these other ones not so much, but that's a better indicator if that shoe is going to move or not, versus is it just you can buy it for 50 and list it for 200. If it sits for a year, that doesn't help me. So you got to pay attention. So the market research is super important. And then if you're trying to sell something, so marketing is basically the activities involved with promoting or selling a service or good. If you're going to sell something, you have to be visible. So when people are only selling on eBay or StockX and GOAT, that's why I cross-list against 6 platforms, because you have to be visible. And if you think about it, if I had 25 shoes, 25 times 6 platforms, what is that, 150 listings, right? I have 150 chances to sell a shoe that day. And then I took it a step further. If you got a shoe with the box, how many times are you guys listing it on GOAT? I'm listing it at least twice. I'm listing it with the box and without the box. Because if they want to buy it without the box, I'll send it without the box. And that's a double listing. So it's actually more than 150 listings that you have. So I don't know if people are thinking about these things, but that's been my MO. So
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that. So do you give a discount if it's without a box?
So it depends. That's a great question. If it's a shoe that has a lot of inventory, meaning you can find it on StockX, you can find it on GOAT, you can find it on all these other places, and GOAT only lets you go in $5 increments, then yes, I might have a shoe listed for 160 with box and 155 without box. And you know what? $5 haircut to me, if I bought the shoe for $60, it's fine, right? I'm not going to try to squeeze every, penny out of a rock. Now, if you have the only pair, meaning, there's some shoes you find and you go, this isn't listed anywhere. So you have the listing on GOAT, you have the listing on StockX, and it's your shoe, because it'll tell you, not so much on GOAT, but on StockX, how many other listings there are, right? Mm-hmm. I will list the same shoe with box and without box at the same price. Why? Because it makes the shoe with the box looks more attractive. It's like you're adding value without adding value. So that's a marketing technique too, right? You got 2 houses, and they're pretty similar, but one has landscaping done in the front, a little bit more curb appeal. You're going to go to that one first. You're going to want to buy that one first. So if you got the only shoe, list it twice, list it with no box and with box, same price, because you're getting your price no matter what. If it's a shoe that's listed elsewhere, a bunch of places, depending on the spread, meaning if there's enough meat on the bones, then I'll do a $5 discount for no box.
Have you had any success with that, where it's the 2-for-1 listing and someone bought the cheaper one for $5 less?
A bunch of times, Joey. Sometimes people, It's because if you think about it, you don't wear the box, so they're just out there going, "Hey, I want the shoe to wear. If $5 cheaper, I was going to toss the box anyway. Just send me the shoe." And it's a quicker sales cycle, meaning they don't have to think about it as long if they have something that seems like a deal to them. So they're more opted. They're going to be more tempted to hit the buy button on the app. So I'm cool with it. They're cool with it. I'll send it with no box. And then I keep the empty boxes for myself and store my old shoes in there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. What kind of advice would you give a working professional that has a family, but then wants some extra income? They want to go on family vacations, very similar situation to you. What kind of advice would you give them?
All right, so first one is family first. You've got to make sure that your wife and your kids are dealt with first. If you find like your hobby is detracting you from spending that quality time with your family, that's going to have worse consequences than putting some extra money in your pocket. So just make sure that you're taking care of that first. The second thing is try to do it not on family time, meaning when I list, it's usually after the kids have gone to bed, or when I source, it's on the way to work or coming home from work. So I'm already on the road. I'm not leaving during the middle of a Saturday to go source and things like that when my kids are sitting there going, let's go do something. And then, like we talked about a little bit earlier, spousal unity is super important. If you make sure your spouse is on board with whatever you do, try to get her involved. If she wants to help you with things, that's even better. I mean, my wife is kind of like, you do your thing, I'm cool with it. So she's not helping me if I want to pack a shoe or nothing, but doesn't bother me as she's letting me do my thing. So just don't neglect your first priorities, I think, is the main message there. It's just a hobby. So
Well said. Appreciate that. Where can people find you on social media?
So I only run an Instagram account. It's Florida.Flipping. And if anybody wants to hit me up, ask me a question, and a lot of times I see them complain, why is my shoe not selling? And they don't know why. I'll hit me up and I'll try to give you some feedback as to what I've learned, at least.
Awesome. Last question. What kind of advice would you give yourself in the last 3 to 5 years, whether it's personal or maybe it's pertaining to reselling? What would you tell Florida.Flipping?
Sure. So first thing, if we go back 5 years, StockX started in 2015. So I would have said try to do StockX before StockX does StockX. That would be the first one, because that company blew up. The second one is, I don't know if you've had any experience with Amazon shoe selling and how some people can sell Nike and some people can sell Adidas, but others can't. I want to know how that world works, because there seems to be some big money in that stuff. So the Amazon, the guys that are, I think they call it ungated in Amazon, selling these Nikes, I mean, they're probably cleaning up. Do you know anything about that? Is that something you've dabbled in?
No, I have not. Heard a lot about it. I'm mainly focusing just on eBay and Go. And so it's interesting, but not right now, man, with the family and just the job transfer. I'm staying away from it.
So 5 years ago, I would have only had one kid, which I would have had a little bit more time to do these things. But now with two kids, it's just a little bit tough for me. So, hey, I want to just tell you one quick thing. Yeah. Love the content you're putting out. One of the things that you talk about in some of your other podcasts is the problem of undercutting and lowballing. Mm-hmm. And I think that has to do with the lack of education. So the more content you put out and the more people that listen to it, that's going to not eliminate the problem, but it probably will decrease it. So keep doing what you're doing. And as a reformed person who was maybe undercutting back in February, I can tell you, once I learned what was the right way to do things, I changed up my game. So I'm hopeful that other people do the same.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man. I appreciate the feedback. When I first started, I was very aggressive. And when I say aggressive, I wasn't afraid to be the lowest one out there. And I think it was because of the business model. But as long as I continue to bring on people like yourself and just really educate people, because we all have different backgrounds. Not everybody's going to have a business background and understand what to do and what not to do. But I mean, I just want to give back. And if I can somehow help one person get off the right way, then it's all worth it. So I appreciate the feedback. Florida.Flipping, thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, I loved every minute of it, Joey.
Awesome. Thank you to the audience for tuning in. You can find today's guest on Instagram at Florida.Flipping, and you can find me on Instagram at eBayJoey. If you like what you're hearing, don't forget to subscribe and follow on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Remember, never forget why you started.